How's it going here? Welcome back to another camera comparison video. Today we got the OnePlus 9 Pro up against the Xiaomi Mi 11. Now both these phones have recently gotten some updates. So the OnePlus 9 Pro is on its latest update, which is the 11.2.5.5 update with the May security patch. The Mi 11 is running MiUI 12.5.7, running on Android 11, also on the May security patch as of May 2021. So I figured why not test out the updates, see how the cameras are performing, and test them against each other. Now, of course, the OnePlus 9 Pro has its full camera system with its main wide, its telephoto lens, and its ultra wide angle lens, that 48 megapixel ultra wide angle lens. The Mi 11 does not have an actual telephoto lens, but it does have its ultra large 108 megapixel sensor along with an ultra wide angle lens. And I figure the 108 megapixel sensor probably cropped into 3.3 times digital zoom will probably give the OnePlus 9 Pro's 3.3 times optical zoom a pretty good run for its money. So, you know, like how I always like to do these tests, I like to show you a bunch of photos and videos in both good and low light conditions to help you decide which of these two camera systems might be best for you. So be sure to check out the photos and videos and let me know which one you thought did better. I'll come back in the end and let my own thoughts. So let's go ahead and take a look at the photos and videos. Hey everyone, so I'm in the park testing out the video on the rear-facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and Xiaomi Mi 11. So this is the ultra-wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second. So I'll just pan around so you get a feel for what this ultra-wide angle lens looks like here in 4K. Check out the color reproduction, the field of view, all that here. So again, this is the ultra-wide angle lens. And here we go with the main wide angle lens on each. So again, I'll pan around here on each of the main lenses so you can get a comparison and feel for what these look like. Again, color reproduction, how that exposure changed when I went up into the sky. Nice greenery, a lot of blues, so really good test of the color reproduction here on each of these cameras. So I'll go ahead and pan off here to the right on the cell tower and we'll test out our zoom like I usually do. So let's go into, that's again still using just 2x digital zoom for some reason and not the telephoto there on the OnePlus. So let's actually try to go into a little bit farther here. So that's about 3.5 times. So let's do the same here on the Xiaomi. So there we go, both at 3.5 times zoom. And let's go ahead and move in a little bit further, 10 times max zoom there on the OnePlus. And let's keep going on the Xiaomi Mi 11. And that maxes out at 6 times digital zoom. So 10 times on the OnePlus, 6 times on the Xiaomi. And that's what the digital zoom looks like here in 4K. So let's back both of those out. And let's get to 1 times here on the Mi 11. And let's test autofocus here on the post with the OnePlus first. So there you go, autofocus pretty good, refocused away. Autofocus snaps into place and refocuses away. So pretty quick and snappy autofocus here on the OnePlus. Yeah, maybe takes a little bit of time, but still overall pretty good. Try the Mi 11. Autofocus snapped right in, refocused away. And let's go ahead and get autofocus, there we go, and away. So about the same, each not the fastest, but it'll eventually focus in. And one last time, there we go. So let's test stabilization by walking down the stairs here so you can see what 4K stabilization looks like here on each of the phones. And I'll just continue walking to the end of the path here, and then we'll stop and I'll pan up here into the trees and into the sky so you can see how the exposure changes for that afternoon light. Hey everyone, so here's some video from the front-facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and Xiaomi Mi 11. And so through that 1080p 30 frames per second, that's the max resolution on each. They both can go up to 60 frames per second recording, but I'm keeping this at 30 frames because the video is going to be exported at 30 frames per second. So as you see here, I'm outdoors. Again, I like to start out in some shade with some more even lighting, so this is going to be the easiest for these cameras. It won't strain them with some harsh light. And so this is about as good as you're going to see as far as outdoor shooting is going to get. And so as I pan around here, you'll start to see what the cameras look like into some of the changing lighting conditions here, especially once I get this way with the sun directly behind me. You can see that bright light right over there and how it's kind of blowing out the sky there, but it's still exposing me and keeping me in focus, which is good. And we'll pan all the way around so you can see what that looks like here. And we're back to the start. You can see how the background looks really nice, well exposed. Everything is looking pretty good here. And so I'll go ahead and walk to test stabilization to give a feel for what that looks like here at 1080p from the front facing cameras. So let me know what you think of the front-facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Xiaomi Mi 11 here. So here's some low light footage from the rear facing cameras of the OnePlus 9 Pro and Xiaomi Mi 11. I'm starting out with the ultra wide angle lens on each. This is at 4K 30 frames per second. So I'm just going to pan around here so you get a feel for how these ultra wide angle lenses compare here in this setting. Some good amount of light, so they should have every opportunity to perform fairly decently here. Usually ultra wide angle lenses aren't that great in low light, so pay attention to how this footage looks like here. And here we are, the main lens on each of the phones. So I'll again pan around so you can see what that looks like here with each of the main cameras. In this particular lighting situation here, you can see it got brighter here on the main lens than the ultra wide, and you can see them both flaring out that really bright street light quite a bit there, and that's pretty typical for most phones. And even those lights along the sides there, the Mi 11 looks like it's kind of struggling to kind of keep those in focus a little bit, at least from what I see in the viewfinder. And if I point up at these trees, you can see how much definition they're able to grab out of those trees, because it's pretty dark and those trees are pretty much faded into the night sky from what I see with my own eyes. But you can see the camera is really trying to brighten up the scene, and the OnePlus 9 Pro is really bringing in some noise, but you can really make out the detail in the trees. The Mi 11 is trying to balance it out a little bit more, but you can at least see the trees through that skyline. Anyway, we'll go ahead and pan over here and start walking so we can test the stabilization here, as well as see how each of these cameras handle the lighting transition from that well-lit area to a much darker area as I round this corner. And at least what I'm seeing in the viewfinder, the OnePlus 9 Pro is really trying to brighten this up a lot more than the Mi 11, and at the expense of a good amount of noise here. And so it's just going to come down to what you prefer. Do you like to keep things closer to what you're seeing with your own eyes, or in dark situations like this, would you rather be able to see more of what you're shooting? And we'll go ahead and pan up into the night sky, which is fairly dark, but not completely dark. There's a good amount of light pollution. And the OnePlus 9 Pro is brightening up a little bit more, but neither are really introducing a whole ton of noise like some other phones. The Mi 11 is actually looking quite dark and black. And we'll pan over here to the left where there's more light down this way, so you can see what it looks like with a bit of light but a little bit more darkness, so kind of a balance between the two. So that's a 4K sample here on each of the two phones. So here's some low light footage from the front facing cameras on the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Xiaomi Mi 11. This is being shot at 1080p 30 frames per second, the max resolution on each. Of course, they both can go up to 60 frames per second, but since I'm going to export this out in 30 frames, this is what you're getting, 1080p 30 frames per second video on each. And so I'm starting out in a fairly well lit area, pretty optimized for low light shooting here, so this is about as good as you're going to get from the footage. And so each of these cameras have the best opportunity to be showing their best possible footage here in these conditions. So you can see the bright lights around me and how these front facing cameras are handling that. And I'll go ahead and start walking to that stabilization, but also so we can move to a much darker area so you can see how these front cameras handle this well lit area and how they transition off to a much darker area. And as I walk this way, I'll also have a fountain off to my right, so we can test out the microphones and see how they are canceling out that background noise and focusing on my voice or not. And so we'll pause here and I'll pan around. And there's gonna be some really bright street lights behind me, so you can see how they handle that lighting. Flaring them out just a tad. I've seen other phones flare those out a lot more than that. So we'll go over here and move over to this darker area so you can kind of see how the front facing cameras handle this darker lighting situation. At least in the viewfinder, the Mi 11 is looking a little bit brighter here than the OnePlus, but that could be different once the video is finally exported. So let me know what you think about all the photos and videos that you saw from the OnePlus 9 Pro and the Xiaomi Mi 11 here. And let me know which one did you prefer for photos, video, or just camera system overall. Personally, I think the OnePlus has greatly improved over the last several updates and has actually become a very capable shooter. I think the front-facing camera needs a little bit of work, but overall photos and videos are looking pretty good. And the Mi 11, Xiaomi's always had some really great imaging, so I thought that came up pretty well as well here. So Let me know in the comments which one you preferred. Any other questions or comments about either the phones and the cameras that I can answer, I'll try to get with what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.